Okay, so we're going to be doing things a little bit differently today. I am hosting the show by myself, so we're not going to do the little countdown graphic today. We're just going to get right to it. Want you to pay attention to our warning graphic. It states that the Retro Rogues live show is intended for an adult audience and not intended for children under the age of 13. Parental discretion is advised. So now welcome you to this episode. This is episode 138 of the Retro Rogues Live. My name is Dave Beaty. I'm one of your hosts. I will be hosting the show by myself today. Got a couple different things we're going to be doing. We're going to do a little bit of follow-up on Aliens here at the beginning of the show, just real quickly. Then we're going to go into initially a non-spoiler or spoiler-free discussion of the Tomorrow War review for the show that's available on the movie. It's a Chris Pratt movie. It's available on Amazon Prime. Then we're going to go from that into a spoiler-filled discussion for those of you who have seen the show, who would like to talk about it in a spoilery environment. I will give you a warning before we do that. And then after that, we're going to do a little bit of pop culture news today, just a little bit. I have one pop culture news item that I want to talk about today. And we will just see how things go from there. I want to encourage you, please. The show is meant to be a discussion and a chat, so I want to encourage you. Please comment, please chat from wherever you are. It doesn't matter if it's Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, wherever you are. Please comment during the show. I'm going to put your comments up live, and that way you can be part of the discussion. I want to encourage everyone to do that. If I lag a little bit putting your comments up, please bear with me because I am doing the show by myself today. But I'm going to do the best I can. And hopefully you will find this entertaining and enjoyable here on this Sunday afternoon. So Sunday afternoon episodes are usually a Rogues retrospective. However, we're going to be doing a review for a current contemporary film. And if for some reason, if someone wants to talk about the new Marvel movie Black Widow, I have seen Black Widow, so I'd be happy to give you my thoughts about that. If people in the Rogues Gallery actually want to discuss it. Now, if for whatever reason, people don't really commenting or watching, I am going to have this be an incredibly short episode today. Hollywood Jackson's in the audience in the Rogues Gallery. Hi, Hollywood. Nice to have you here. Thanks for being here and being part of the show. Also, Hollywood Jackson has a new album out, Sinister Grin. It's really good. I quite liked it. I've been sharing the links. If you're curious about it, if you go to the Retro Rogues Live Facebook page, you can find a link there actually in the news thread. So you can check it out right there. But again, definitely check out Hollywood Jackson's new album, Sinister Grin. You can, again, find it over there in the Retro Rogues Live, as well as just do a search for Hollywood Jackson. He does have a page on Facebook. You go over there, like Hollywood Jackson's Facebook page, and again, check out his new album. Want to encourage everyone to do that. Hollywood Jackson's a big supporter of the show. We want to support him. My mom's in the audience. Hi, Mom. Hi, Jane. Mom's in the audience here. Glad to have you here. We are going to be talking about the Tomorrow War based on your recommendation. I did actually watch it last night. Thank you for the shares, Dave, says Hollywood Jackson. Hollywood Jackson, you're more than welcome. You're always sharing the show. We greatly appreciate your support. We want to support you too. Thank you again for supporting the Retro Rogues Live. And we want to tell everyone, please check out Sinister Grin, available now. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to start off the show actually with a little bit of Aliens discussion. And the reason I want to start off with that is because bear with me as I figure out the best way to do the graphic here. Because I had talked about previously, I have here in my ink-stained fingers, because I am an inker, I have here in my ink-stained fingers, this is my copy of Starlog Magazine from May of 1980. We had actually been discussing Alien and Aliens, and Len Workman, friend of the show, and former co-host, actually, of the Rogues... what was it? The Rogues Radio show, which was the precursor to this show when it was just a podcast only, had talked about Bob Burns and his Halloween extravaganzas that he used to do at his house. And I said that I had in one of these Starlog magazines some pretty cool coverage that they had done back in the day So we're going to blow this up here. So this again is from May of 1980. This is Starlog, the great Starlog magazine. We're going to show off some of these images and talk about it here. I did scan the pages. So this is a special effects extravaganza. Alien invades Burbank. Thousands terrified. This is a story by David Houston. And I'm just going to read just a little bit of this, and we're going to mostly look at the pictures. So it says, "'Twas the night before Halloween, and CBS News had a surprising report from one of its crews. We have some pictures for you," said the anchor lady, "of the most remarkable Halloween event we've seen. Cut the videotape. Camera moves down the long, dark, visually complex corridor of a familiar-looking spaceship, an amateur reconstruction of the Nostromo in the popular 20th Century Fox film Alien. Now in central control area, the camera shows an actor in Nostromo jacket and cap, an authentic reproduction of the Thinking Cap Company, creeping around a corner with his sensor device in his hand. He passes a video monitor and shows schematics of the ship and a moving, flashing square dot. A woman's voice comes over the intercom, cautioning the man, whom she calls Dallas, telling him the alien is in his area." Now, the person playing Captain Dallas, if you can tell by this picture, is the one, the only Walter Koenig, who played Chekhov in Star Trek. He'd actually play Captain Dallas in Bob Burns' Halloween Extravaganza. So here's an image of him getting basically meeting the alien and getting strangled. I've got a few more images here from Bob Burns' Halloween Extravaganza of the alien. Here is, I think that might actually be Bob Burns in the suit, but actually holding a baby. It's a kind of a weird, disturbing image. Here's Bob Burns with some information talking about it before you actually enter his alien extravaganza. And then check this out. This is really cool. So this is them actually building the replica of the alien suit when they did the Halloween extravaganza, which is pretty amazing. And then if you see right here, here is a picture right here. This is, I think it was Bob Burns who was actually in the outfit. It might have been someone else. Yeah, Bob, but I didn't actually read these comments. But anyhow, check out how awesome this is. This is what they built for their Halloween extravaganza that year at Bob Burns' place. This is just absolutely amazing. This is what people were treated to if they witnessed the Halloween extravaganza. Really, really cool. Here's some more images, kind of some behind the scenes. They're suiting someone up in the alien suit. Here's, I believe, is one of the actual a replica, or maybe even one of the actual facehuggers from the film that they had on display. And then check this out. This is their replica of the Nostromo that they actually built. Really, really cool. So again, this is from Bob Burns' Halloween Extravaganza. If you're curious to check this out, again, if you see down here, this was Starlog from May of 1980. Really, really cool. Wanted to share these images for those people who've never seen them. And I just love this picture here. Again, the great Walter Koenig playing Dallas in this live production that they produced for Halloween one year. So anyhow, I thought people might find it interesting. If for some reason, if you're watching the show and you actually got to actually participate in one of Bob Burns' Halloween extravaganzas, please comment and let us know. I'd love to know what you thought of it. All right, so enough about that. Let's go ahead and get into our actual talk here. I'm going to pull up my banner here real quick, and I'm going to change out my little thing here real quick. Okay, so again, it's episode 138. We're going to be talking about, we're going to start off with the Tomorrow War. We're going to do some non-spoiler talk. So I'm going to give you my non-spoiler thoughts. And if you have seen the Tomorrow War on Amazon Prime Video, please comment from wherever you are. It doesn't matter, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter. It doesn't matter where you are. Please comment. Let us know your thoughts. We want you to be a part of the show. I'm going to put your comments up here live on the show, again, if they relate to the Tomorrow War. All right, so I saw this last night, actually, with my wife. And I'm going to give you just some brief information here about the Tomorrow War, just real quickly. And again, everyone bear with me. Normally I have a co-host, however, I'm flying solo today. So let's go over to right here. So just real quickly, the summary coming from IMDb. Again, this is Tomorrow War. This is a new film, ran 2 hours and 20 minutes. It says a family man is drafted to fight in a future war where the fate of humanity relies on his ability to confront the past. Stars Chris Pratt as the main character. We also have Yvonne Stravosky. Apologies if I'm pronouncing incorrectly. Also, J.K. Simmons, Betty Gilpin, Sam Richardson, and Yasmin Matthews are listed as the primary cast actually here on IMDb. This is directed by Chris McKay, who I'm becoming quite a fan of. He actually did the Lego Batman movie, and then he actually did this one. And I was genuinely surprised by this film. I'll tell you right now, this is going to be a positive review for The Tomorrow War. This was written actually by Zach Dean. Okay, so I saw this last night, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think for people who haven't seen it, who are curious about it, if you liked Starship Troopers, if you liked Edge of Tomorrow, which is the Tom Cruise movie, I feel like those are probably your two closest comparisons, because it did at times kind of remind me a little bit of Edge of Tomorrow, and again, a lot of Starship Troopers. There are kind of like shades of things like John Carpenter's The Thing in a few places, and there are shades of other things like Alien. Again, a lot of aliens discussion here on the show, but a little bit of shades kind of Alien, I thought, at times. And also things like, Battle for Los Angeles. It was a really interesting film. I had seen the trailer, I think when Amazon Prime was first promoting it. I had seen the trailer, and I thought, oh, this looks interesting. And then I'll be honest with you, I get so busy at times with so many different things I do here at DaveBeaty.com or Dave Beaty Studios, when you want to call it. I get really, really crazy busy between my t-shirt company, Kirby Tees, the freelancing work I'm doing. It's just a lot going on around here. And I guess I'd kind of forgotten about the film for some reason. And again, Jane, who's in the Rogues Gallery, had recommended for us to watch The Tomorrow War. So I watched it, and I was pleasantly surprised. I thought it was high quality. The effects were really interesting. The acting was absolutely top notch. I want to talk about here. I want to make sure I get the names correctly. I forgot to mention Edward Hodge, who played Dorian. He was really good in this film. And Ryan Kiera Armstrong, who actually plays Chris Pratt's daughter, the younger version of his daughter, who I thought turned in an incredibly strong, actually, performance in the movie. There's actually one particular scene where I thought she was just, again, for a child actress, I mean, incredibly powerful performance that she turned in, especially in this one scene. I'm not going to get further into it until we actually get into the spoiler portion. So again, I'd seen the trailers. Again, Jane in the Rogues Gallery recommended. That's how I heard about it. I watched it last night. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I can't recommend The Tomorrow War enough. I thought it had an interesting message, and was just an incredibly well put together film. Top-notch acting. I thought the special effects were really great. I found myself kind of on the edge of the seat at different times during this as well, and just was really surprised. And now, again, this is engineered for someone like me to enjoy this. Again, I've talked previously about my love of the Aliens movies, so I do like this kind of stuff. Obviously, I'm a big sci-fi fan. We've talked a lot about here on the show things like, Star Trek and Star Wars and such on and so forth. So obviously, I'm a big sci-fi fan. And I quite enjoyed the Tom Cruise movie, Edge of Tomorrow, when it came out. I actually saw that in theaters. And so this kind of thing is definitely, again, Starship Troopers. I really enjoy the original Starship Troopers movie. So this is obviously geared for someone like me to enjoy. Now, if you're not a big sci-fi fan, I think there's still a good little bit of action in this one that's worth checking out. And it's interesting too, because I almost felt like watching this, that this could be, and I've seen some people speculate about this online. Some people had speculated that it could be, a little bit of a sequel to Cloverfield Paradox, which I kind of go, okay, yeah. And then I myself watching it, I felt like this could be the third film in the Quiet Place films, if you were, like the third of a trilogy, if you want, that explains, where the creatures come from, maybe kind of what they want and whatever else. I don't know. I just could see it where a lot of people could attach this film to a lot of other films and find it to be an interesting conclusion of that kind of a storyline. My wife Micah is in the house. Hi, Micah. Thank you for being here. She said, I didn't have to talk her into watching this. She said, I had her at Chris Pratt. Okay, well, there you go. There's my wife's comments on that. Chris Pratt, I think, is a tremendous actor. My wife is obviously saying that she enjoyed watching him. You'll have to figure out from there where you want to take that. But I do find him to be a great actor, and he's really great. I mean, I enjoyed him, obviously, the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Really enjoyed watching him. He was in Parks and Rec. This is a very different character, obviously, from Parks and Rec, and Star-Lord to an extent. I mean, he's very much the action hero in this film. All right, so that's going to do it for our non-spoiler portion of this. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to change out the banner here so we can get into the spoiler part of the show. So this is going to be the spoiler part of the show. So if you have not seen the Tomorrow War and you do not want us to talk about, if you don't want to know that much more about it, other than the fact that I'm telling you it's really good, and I would say I would compare it somewhere between Starship Troopers and Edge of Tomorrow. I feel like those two films are a pretty good benchmark for what you're going to get in this film. So if you're curious to check it out, that's my recommendation. So I'm actually going to talk more spoilery about the film right now. So again, if you don't want any spoilers, now would be the time maybe to come back to the show, watch it in the replay, or listen to the replay, which is the podcast over at Anchor, or obviously watch the replay actually on something like YouTube, for example. I'm going to start talking about spoilers. So this is going to be your final warning. This is your final warning. We're going to get into some spoilers here right now. Micah also says she loved him in Parks and Rec, not to mention the Jurassic Park franchise. I'd forgotten about that. Micah. You are correct. He was actually quite good in the Jurassic Park movies. I'm excited to hopefully see the next one whenever that comes out. All right. And then Jane says that with Star-Lord in this was one of the reasons that I watched it. And I would agree. He is really great as Star-Lord, and Chris Pratt, I think, is a great actor, and I've really enjoyed him in everything he's in. I kind of honestly felt like that if they were going to cast someone new to pick up the mantle of Indiana Jones, from Harrison Ford moving forward, and doing like kind of maybe stories before Raiders, that I felt like that Chris Pratt might be an interesting choice to do that if they wanted to move in that direction. I don't think that's something they're going to do, though, but I think he'd be really great for that. Okay, so let's get into the Tomorrow War spoilers. I'm just going to hit the high points for me. I'm not going to break down the whole film. Again, you've either seen it or you hopefully want to go see it. High points for the film. Again, as I said previously, the acting in this is absolutely, I felt like really, really great. Chris Pratt, I thought, was absolutely fantastic in this. The actress who actually, now, again, remember, this is spoilers. Both actresses who play his character's daughters in the film, both of them, the younger one and the older one, I thought were really, really absolutely fantastic. And I kind of saw maybe this kind of coming a little bit, which the twist in the film is, for those of you who've obviously seen it, the twist in the film, and again, this is the spoiler part of the show, so if you don't want this spoiled, you need to take off. The twist in this is that Chris Pratt's daughter, who he says goodbye to in the past, he actually ends up working with and helping in the future. She's the colonel. She's one of the people who's actually leading this resistance against this invading alien force that's basically going to wipe out the human race in a short span of time in the future. I thought both of the actresses were absolutely incredible. The younger actress, again, turned in such a powerful performance. There's a scene where he's trying to say goodbye to her, and she is digging like a hole in their backyard or whatever. And she's very interested in science because he actually, while having served in the military, he actually is very interested in science and is a scientist. And wow, just incredible performance from her. I mean, I really, really felt for her. And it really brought me into the film. The connection between Chris Pratt and his daughter, the way that it's portrayed, is absolutely incredible. Now, Jane says that time travel is another reason that she watched it. I know that my mom quite loves time travel stories, because my mom is the one who introduced me to all the great time travel movies that I saw as a kid growing up. Obviously, besides just The Time Machine, also things such as what's the Christopher Reeve time travel movie with Jane Seymour? Why am I blanking on it? Somewhere in Time. All just really great. And obviously things like Back to the Future. And even things too like, was it Time After Time? I think is the Roddy McDowall, David Warner film, where they're actually trying to capture Jack the Ripper, who's actually managed to travel to present day in that film. Another really great time travel movie. Philadelphia Experiments, another really great time travel movie. My mom introduced me to all of these films, whether they were new or older, and I've had a love of time travel stories ever since. Micah says Betty Gilpin plays his wife and is great in the Netflix series Glow. I would totally agree with you, Micah. Betty Gilpin is absolutely fantastic in the Netflix series Glow. If you have not seen the Netflix series Glow, I highly recommend it. It is a really great series, and a lot of fun. Micah also says the time traveling was a good draw, but don't overuse it. But they don't overuse it for the storyline. And I would agree with that. I would agree with that assessment 100%, Micah. It is interesting how they use it as a hook, but they don't spend a lot of time traveling back and forth. And it's interesting because something like this potentially could derail a film, the whole time travel aspect of it. And the way that they kind of approach it works in the film. But I feel like for me, it's definitely the story that the connection between the father and the daughter, and then later on the connection between Chris Pratt's character and actually his father is really interesting. I mean, it's a very interesting and powerful story all the way around. I feel like J.K. Simmons is really great actually as Chris Pratt's father in this. J.K. Simmons always turns in a great performance. I don't think I've ever seen J.K. Simmons in anything where he hasn't done an absolutely fantastic job. And like I said, all over the place, all the performances are really great. The actor who plays Charles is really great too. They just overall, this film is full of great performances. So the alien design I felt like was very good. I do feel like, and it's interesting because I saw some commentary just in a little bit of brief research before going on the show today. Some people are being a little critical of kind of this alien idea, that it's maybe becoming a little bit oversaturated, right? That it's maybe a little bit overdone. And this has shades of alien storylines that are in a lot of other films, whether you want to talk about Alien, whether you want to talk about The Thing or Thing from Another World. Obviously, John Carpenter's Thing is actually, a reboot, reimagining, whatever, of the 1950s film, The Thing from Another World. And I saw a lot of discussion about that. And these alien designs, to me, I feel like are maybe kind of following into a certain kind of a pattern. This alien feels very much to an extent like the alien from The Quiet Place films, or kind of feels a little bit like the aliens, or looks a little bit like the aliens actually from either Cloverfield. There's a creature that looks very close to this actually in the first Star Trek, the Chris Pine Star Trek movie. And I do feel like this design is kind of coming up a lot. It feels very reminiscent of this kind of thing that's kind of keeps getting, recirculated or whatever. I know they're using CGI to make them more animalistic and terrifying. But there is something about it that is kind of starting to feel kind of like a template. And I do feel like that it's something that Hollywood should think about moving forward, different ways to approach the creature design. But again, it doesn't detract from the film at all. The creatures are very terrifying and they work very well. It's just like, I feel like it is kind of falling into kind of like a template, and they kind of seem very similar. We're seeing a lot of the same thing when it comes to the aliens in a lot of these different films, but I don't feel like that takes away from this at all. Jane also mentions that the story around the daughter was great. I totally agree. I totally agree with Jane. Again, the powerful storyline in the film. Let's see. It's interesting, how do they handle the technology of the future? The technology of the future is not very far advanced from where we are today. It's that sort of used retro future idea that we've seen in a lot of different things. And that's not bad. It's not bad, but sometimes I feel like with some of these, I wish the technology was a little bit more forward thinking, or maybe it's just we're beginning to lose our imagination of where we think weapon technology will be in the future, that it's not going to be that much of an advance. And it's such a weird thing to bring up, but I think of, for example, I know a lot of people did not care for the oh shoot, what was the name of that? Elysium. I know a lot of people didn't care for the film Elysium, but I really liked the design work and the technology of the film Elysium. And they had some interesting technological advances that they put forth in Elysium. And it was still very much a used future kind of idea with the technology, but at least the technology was advanced forward a little bit. They had, once you fired one round, all the bullets would basically trace to the same point. And that's, besides alien design, that's the one thing I wish that the technology of the future was a little bit more advanced. I mean, kind of again, super nitpick. But those are kind of the two things I would say where the film it's good. It's a great movie. I really enjoyed it. I actually want to watch it again. And for me, that's the hallmark of a great film. And the storytelling is absolutely fantastic. But if I was going to nitpick, those are going to be my two gripes. Other than that, I don't have a lot of gripes with this. Jane says, do you think the alien being similar makes it more believable? That's an interesting question, Jane. Do you think the alien being similar makes it more believable? I mean, I guess more believable in the sense that we're seeing the same design come up enough across a lot of different films that it is a little bit more believable because we've seen it so many times at this point. I don't know if it makes it necessarily more believable. I didn't question the believability of the creature at all. I just felt like that it follows into a certain design template that we're seeing kind of brought forward. It feels like they're looking at the same stuff every time when they design these aliens. And maybe it's because they're trying to stay so far away from the aliens and, the aliens that we think of when we think of aliens, like the xenomorphs, from the Ridley Scott films and stuff. I mean, I don't know. It's just one of those things. It seems like whenever we get a really terrifying land-based alien, it's starting to feel like they're falling into the same template. It feels like that there's a group of alien designers in Hollywood who think the same basic things make aliens terrifying. And while I agree with them, seeing something like that in real life would be absolutely terrifying. When you're looking at films from a fiction standpoint, it's starting to feel like that they're falling into a templated approach. This one just had more limbs, and a tail that shoots projectiles. Is that terrifying? Of course it is. Of course it is. Well, every time they shot those little spike things, because they call them, I think, white spikes or something. Every time they shot those, I kept thinking of Krull, the Slayers from Krull, if anyone's familiar with that film. That was the first time I'd seen aliens that had almost like a laser-based weapon, because they would fire this thing and it looked like a laser beam, but it was it was like a knife or something that would shoot through people like a projectile bullet. I don't know. It was I'm sorry, they had a sword and they would fire a beam thing off the one end, but they only got one shot. Kind of reminded me of Krull, but it was not the same thing as Krull at all. And then Micah comments, she says, but they used the female alien kind of like in Aliens. The female is definitely the main antagonist. I totally agree with you, Micah. And it's interesting too, because just like in Aliens, it seems like that female alien has a beef to settle, or a score to settle. And it's interesting too. I can't remember which sci-fi film it is that I have seen this idea explored before, but it's where an alien being is able to think kind of across time, not linearly, the same way that we think in a linear fashion. And while they did not explore that concept in this film necessarily, I feel like as we're getting towards the conclusion of the film, I kind of almost wondered if maybe there is sort of this non-linear mind idea, and that this female alien is the same one from the future war, and maybe because it doesn't think non-linearly, maybe it can, you know, see in Chris Pratt the same person that it wants to settle the score with. Again, totally, that's just me. That's me spitballing and speculating. I don't think that's necessarily the important point of the film, but there you go. Just something that crossed my mind as I was watching it. But I do agree with you. They do use the female alien like in Aliens, and that was really cool. Like I said, great film. Highly recommend it. Really good film. Great performances all the way around. Great special effects. I feel like the story is the big selling point in this film. Definitely a big selling point in this film is the story. Jane says a mom protecting her babies can be terrifying. Totally agree with that. Totally agree with that, Mom. Totally agree with you 100%. And it definitely comes across in the film, as well as in Aliens. I will say still to this day, I don't think a showdown between another character and an alien has ever come anywhere close to that moment in Aliens with Sigourney Weaver fighting down the alien queen in Aliens. I still have not seen anything that touches that. When you want to talk about edge of your seat, drama, action, just that scene still, that classic line, get away from her, you bitch. I mean, that whole thing is so classic. I have yet to see a sci-fi film that has an ending moment that even comes anywhere close to touching that. As many an alien invasions, human fighting aliens invading movies as I've seen over the course of my life, it's amazing that nothing still touches the final showdown in the original Aliens. But this is a great film, and I do agree with both Micah and Jane's comments that the way they use the female alien in this film is actually quite interesting, because it is reminiscent of Aliens, and it is very good. It is very good. I feel like it definitely comes across. And they talk about too in this film that the alien version of the species is more aggressive than actually the male, which is interesting. So I think, unless anyone else in the Rogues Gallery has any more comments they want to put out, I feel like that we're probably pretty good talking about the Tomorrow War. Again, high recommendation from me for the Amazon original movie. Again, you can watch it on Amazon Prime Video, The Tomorrow War. Highly recommend this film. Really great film. Has a great message. Incredibly powerful story. While some of the things may feel a little similar that you've seen before, I do feel like still it is a really great film and worth watching. I really thoroughly enjoyed this. Again, I would say it sits somewhere in between Starship Troopers, not quite as bloody or violent necessarily, but it sits somewhere between Starship Troopers and also, again, Edge of Tomorrow, the great Tom Cruise sci-fi movie. I really enjoyed Edge of Tomorrow, and I feel like the Tomorrow War sits somewhere in between those two films. If you're curious and you're still on the fence of actually checking out the Tomorrow War, that would be how I would kind of summarize it. I think in a way, if you've seen those films, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Mike also says from the Rogues Gallery, there was a bit of foreshadowing with the storyline that made a few things predictable, but I don't think that ruined the movie for me. And I would agree, Micah. I would agree. There is sort of this thing with this kid in the volcanoes where they're talking about volcanoes in Chris Pratt's high school science class. That it's pretty obvious they're going to come back to that. I totally agree with you that was heavily telegraphed, but again, it did not spoil my enjoyment for the film at all. Again, highly recommend the Tomorrow War. great film. I thoroughly enjoyed it. A shame Eric isn't here, my normal co-host, Mr. Eric Alexander, because I'd be very curious to see what he thought actually of this film. But unfortunately, today you're just going to get my perspective and the perspective of those in the Rogues Gallery. So I know that Jane and Micah are in the Rogues Gallery and you're commenting, and you enjoyed the film. Would both of you recommend The Tomorrow War for people who are curious? They kind of maybe seen the trailer, they're kind of on the fence. Micah, Jane, please comment in the Rogues Gallery. Tell me, would you recommend The Tomorrow War for people who are either Chris Pratt fans or people who like sci-fi movies? Would you recommend it? I would definitely like to hear your recommendation if you wouldn't, commenting from Rogues Gallery and letting me know what you think. Jane also has a comment where she says, the scene where he has to leave his daughter in the future is heart-wrenching. I totally agree. It's heart-wrenching. But I'm going to tell you, Mom, I feel like the biggest powerhouse moment when it comes to acting in this is actually when Chris Pratt is saying goodbye to his young daughter. That for me was the moment that had me kind of the most touched in the context of the story, because I really felt like that when he was saying goodbye, that he was really saying goodbye to her. I didn't think he was actually going to make it back. I felt like this film was going to end with him dying. I kind of was thinking that maybe when he gets to the future that the colonel who was in charge was his daughter older, but I still wasn't 100% sure. I was like, well, that would be interesting. But I could also kind of see the film going in a different direction where he tries to promise that he'll be back, but he realizes he can't go back because the only way to save her future, is to stay in the future. That's where I kind of thought it was going. So it's interesting that it did not go there. And it looks like we do have some recommendations from Jane and Micah here in the Rogues Gallery for The Tomorrow War. Jane says she would highly recommend watching it. And then Micah says, yes, all of the above, sci-fi, Chris Pratt fans, and action fans. So there you go. There's a recommendation from Jane and Micah in the Rogues Gallery. And again, also, I will third that recommendation and say The Tomorrow War, getting watched on the Amazon Prime Video, is well worth the investment of time. I really enjoyed it. Again, certain elements may feel familiar, may feel a little bit similar to other things that maybe you have seen in the past. But I feel like the story is strong enough, the action is good enough. I think that you will more than enjoy it and find it a worthwhile film to check out. Okay, all right. So if that sounds good, I think we are going to segue over. Thank all of you in the Rogues Gallery for your comments. We're going to go ahead and segue over. We're going to do some pop culture news, everyone. That's right. It's time for the pop culture news segment. There will be no Streaming Wars segment today. I do not have any Streaming Wars news. However, I do have some pop culture news that I do want to talk about. I'm going to save my thoughts for the passing of Richard Donner for actually next week's episode. I did not get a chance to comment on the passing of Richard Donner. Truly great director who's been behind so many movies that I have loved. But I want to save my comments until actually next Thursday's episode. I want to save them for then. So just put that out there right now. I'm going to save it for then. All right. So here for the pop culture news segment, I do have a story I absolutely wanted to talk about. Let me go ahead and get another banner running here across the bottom. All right. So that's not the one I want. Can you tell my co-host isn't here to help me out? Can you tell? Where is my banner at? All right, we'll just use this one. All right, okay. So here is my my pop culture story for today that I wanted to talk about. So this has kind of been making the rounds. I think a lot of you in the audience who are animation fans or grew up in the 80s have probably already heard about this. My understanding is Super 7, who's getting ready to launch this line of Silverhawks action figures, that they actually managed to secure the rights for Silverhawks beyond just doing the action figures. As my understanding, it could be slightly confused. This story is coming from Screen Rant. This was actually published 2 days ago. You can clearly see that if you can read your screen. This is by Roxy Powell. Again, this is coming from Screen Rant. It says, the Silverhawks revival in the works. I loved Silverhawks when I was a kid. Despite its somewhat slightly implausible stuff, I still love Silverhawks as a kid. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It says, Silverhawks, an animated action comedy from the 80s, is returning to the screen. The original is analogous to the classic series Thundercats. Now, I would kind of agree with that. We're going to read a little bit of this, just a little bit of this. I would encourage you, if you're curious to check it out, I would encourage you to go over to Screen Rant and actually check out the story for yourself. But the Silverhawks, an 80s animated action comedy made by people behind the Thundercats, is getting rebooted. Rankin Bass Animated Entertainment created the former following the popularity of Thundercats, a beloved cartoon and comic book franchise about a team of alien heroes. Silverhawks isn't technically a spin-off of its better-known counterpart, as it follows a new group of semi-human crime fighters elsewhere in space and further into the future. A Silverhawks reboot is currently in development, according to Deadline. The project is spearheaded by the Nacelle Company, which has been involved in the production and distribution of unscripted series, including Down to Earth with Zac Efron, The Movies That Made Us, which I highly recommend those on Netflix. Those are really great. And The Toys That Made Us, also really great on Netflix, as well as the scripted shows like Kevin Hart's Guide to Black History and Here's Johnny. Nacelle has worked with every major streaming platform, so the reboot could end up anywhere. An anticipated release date for the series has yet to be announced. Okay, so I'm a big Silverhawks fan. I've always loved Silverhawks ever since I was a kid. I had a lot of the toys when I was a kid. They were kind of like the superpowers. You like push the legs together, little wings would come out. Really cool. The toys are really cool, but I just really loved the cartoon. The cartoon was really neat. I have the entire collection actually on DVD up here on this shelf over here that I'm pointing to. You can't see me pointing to it. You guys can't see the shelf, but it's up there. Really love the animated series. They had a lot of really cool, kind of interesting villains. You know, a robot with like saws for hands. They had another one who could, I think, stop time for like a minute or 30 seconds or something. I forget his actual amount of time he could stop time for. They had, another character from the Silverhawks who could actually travel back to a certain amount of, like, in time and stuff. A lot of crazy, fun sci-fi concepts. And again, these are humans. These are augmented cyborg humans who are actually dispatched to actually protect people kind of on the edges of sort of like the new frontier when you're talking about space. Really cool series. Great design work. And just always loved it. So I think it's really cool that they're doing a revival for the Silverhawks. I don't know if any of you in the Rogues Gallery are familiar with Silverhawks, but I thoroughly enjoyed this cartoon show when I was a kid. I'm really excited to see what they do with this actual reboot. We had actually, I can't remember if we actually talked about it or highlighted it or not, but again, Super 7, for those of you interested, Super 7 is actually doing a line of Silverhawks action figures. They look amazing. I think they look totally amazing. They're incredibly expensive, though, for me anyway. So I'm not going to be getting any of them because I feel like anything over $50 for an action figure is way too much to spend. That's just because it's out of my budget. But for those of you who are diehard Silverhawks collectors, I might be interested to check out. They look really great. They look just like the animated cartoon. They're not as silvery shiny as this amazing illustration here. By the way, this illustration actually here of the Silverhawks, they don't have the full illustration here. You can see part of it here. This is actually Quicksilver. This is the leader of the Silverhawks right here. I have always loved that artwork that they released when this series came out back in the day. Just beautiful, incredible artwork for the advertising and publicity for this show. I can't tell you how many times I've redrawn this image of Quicksilver when I was a kid because I've always loved it. But anyhow, the great, in my mind, classic in my mind anyway, 80s animated series. For those of us who grew up in the 80s, Silverhawks is going to be making a comeback. Very excited for that. So I thought I would highlight that here on the show. Just real briefly, wanted to talk about that. So that's going to be my pop culture news item for today. We're at about 44 minutes. We like to have the show run about 45 minutes to an hour. If anyone in the Rogues Gallery has anything else you want to talk about, now would be the time. Otherwise, I'm going to start looking at winding down the show. Now, I'm going to mention this too here just real briefly once again. Put that over my face. But again, if you're a Loki fan, if you enjoyed the new show, if you are a collector, here's your glorious purpose right here. I would definitely check out finding a copy of the 1976 Topps Loki sticker. First appearance of Loki, again, on anything, trading card sticker. Again, not obviously the comic book predates this, but here you go. If you're looking for some glorious purpose for Loki, I would definitely check out trying to find a copy of this. His first appearance on a trading card, even though it's a sticker, still technically counts. Man, classic Loki was so awesome in the show. So much fun. Actor absolutely killed it. Did a great job. Thoroughly. Just so much fun. The episode of Loki was so much fun. I also did see Black Widow. For some reason, anyone in the Rogues Guy wants to talk about it just briefly. Let me just go ahead and give you my initial review. I enjoyed it. Not as many, connections to the larger, and again, this will be spoiler free, connections to the overall MCU, but not as many as I was probably thinking. And it's interesting that the end, there is an end credit sequence for the movie, as there normally is with the Marvel movie. I know the Disney Plus shows are kind of hit or miss. They'll sometimes have one, sometimes won't. It's kind of confusing with what they're doing with the Disney Plus shows. But I will say this. I was a little surprised, not terribly surprised, but a little surprised at the end credits scene in relation to the Disney Plus shows. So I think those of us who are up to date and have seen all the Disney Plus shows will get more out of the end credits scene than maybe people who are not watching the Disney Plus shows. And it puts forth an interesting question about when a character that we think is going to maybe come back, even though it seemed like the character would not. I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't want to get too much more spoilery than that, but I'm just going to say I enjoyed the Black Widow movie. I've seen a lot of criticism of the film. Kind of from a political standpoint, I didn't see it. Sometimes I can see what people are talking about with their political commentary and criticism of certain shows. I didn't find Black Widow to be particularly political. Maybe that's just me. But overall, I just enjoyed it. It was just a fun action movie, kind of more of a James Bond film, I think, than anything. I've seen some people comparing it to Winter Soldier. I'd say Winter Soldier, I wouldn't say it's comparable to Winter Soldier in my own personal opinion. But I do feel like it's an entertaining film, probably more like a Bond movie, a Marvel Bond movie than necessarily. But I don't think it quite reaches the level of Winter Soldier, in my personal opinion. Florence Pugh, who's in it, absolutely fantastic. So I'm gonna say I enjoyed it. There you go. If you want to check out Black Widow, that's going to be up to you. But I did enjoy it. Okay. All right, that's it. We do have one comment in the Rogues Gallery. I'm going to use that for the closeout here. So let's go ahead and let's work our way over to closing. So I want to thank you for watching this episode of Retro Rogues Live. Again, my name is Dave Beaty. I've been one of your hosts. If you are curious to learn more about what occupies a lot of my time these days, if you are looking for a way to maybe support the Retro Rogues Live show because you like it, please go over and check out KirbyTees.com. That is my t-shirt company, KIRBYTS.com. Again, KIRBYTS.com. Check it out, KirbyTees.com. Got a lot of fun things over there. Sarah Aerosmith's Brains Are Magic t-shirt, really great t-shirt. With great artwork with Sarah Aerosmith. The collaboration between myself and the great Janimal, the Skeletor shirts over there, as well as a lot of Retro Rogues Live t-shirts for you to check out as well. We greatly appreciate you purchasing a Retro Rogues Live t-shirt and supporting what we were doing here on the show. And we just do a couple quick comments we like to leave our actual viewers and people in the Rogues Guy with the last comments. They're a little overly nice, but we'll go ahead and we'll put those up. The great Hollywood Jackson in the house. Again, check out Hollywood Jackson's new album, Sinister Grin. Hollywood Jackson has a page on Facebook. Obviously, search for Hollywood Jackson. Go there, give it a like, check out the album. If for some reason that doesn't work for you or whatever, you can go to the Retrogs Live in the news feed. We do have a link to Sinister Grin, new album by Hollywood Jackson. Definitely check that out. Really, really great stuff. I want to thank Hollywood Jackson for being here and being a part of the show. I want to thank Micah for being a part of the show. And last but not least, I want to thank Mom Jane for being here and being part of the show. I hope you enjoyed this show. It was entirely based on your recommendation for us to check out The Tomorrow War. So Jane says, great job on the show today. And with that, we will leave Jane with the last word.